everybody, it's Caroline Strawson here, rapid transformational therapist and EMDR practitioner, helping you self-heal the trauma after narcissistic abuse using tools such as rapid transformational therapy, EMDR, reparenting, inner child techniques to really help you live your best life after narcissistic abuse. So what I want to talk about today is trauma, because again, you will see I keep talking about this a lot because so many people don't understand that when you have been in a narcissistic relationship with somebody, whether that be a parent, whether that be with a partner, a friend or a colleague, you will be suffering from trauma. Literally every single client that I see exhibits symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So this is where memories have got stuck of us being in a certain situation, and every trigger then that comes in the present moment makes us react in our trauma response of fight, flight or freeze, and it takes us back to being in that event. Now I want to talk to you a little bit because a lot of people around narcissistic abuse and any kind of trauma, to be honest, because I also treat lots of people from other aspects of trauma too, there always seems to be a lot of shame and guilt. And that can come from society pressures in people just thinking, gosh, it's been 3 months now, 6 months, you should get over it. Or it could be simply because they are looking at themselves thinking, why am I still feeling like this? Why is it I can't seem to keep moving forward with my life? So we start beating ourselves up. We start with that inner critical voice to us saying, hey, just get on with it. And when you wake up at that next morning and you feel really like you don't want to get out of bed or anything else, and then that inner critic starts again. So I just want to talk to you a little bit about practicing some self-kindness to yourself as to what an amazing piece of equipment we have with our brain and our body. And when you understand this, and I'll try and explain it in a really simple way, which hopefully will allow you to think, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I'm feeling the way that I do. Because I believe when we start to understand why we feel the way that we do, that's when we can start to facilitate change. And with lots of my clients, I will do a lot of education with them and awareness, because with that, we can really start to facilitate change because your mindset changes on this. Rather than that guilt and shame and beating yourself up and that harsh inner critic, what we do is we start to understand that our brain and our body are there to do a job. And that job is to keep us safe and away from pain. So every little reaction we have, you know, whether that's anxiety or depression or muscle tension, anything that your body does is a direct result of the perception that your brain has made that you need to react in that way. And with a trauma response of fight, flight or freeze, it literally thinks there's a lion there and it's about to eat you, so you need to react in a fight, or you need to run away, or go into freeze and shut down and start to dissociate. So I want to explain a little bit really from a perspective of understanding how our body works, how our autonomic nervous system works to help you process trauma and what it does, and then sometimes how it can get stuck, and that's when we start to get PTSD and complex PTSD. So we have our autonomic nervous system, which splits into 2 branches, and that's the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Now the sympathetic is our fight or flight, and then in the parasympathetic there is something that we have called the vagus nerve, which goes down the brainstem at the back of your neck. And in that goes into 2 branches. One is the dorsal part of the vagus nerve, and that is at the back, and that is where our shutdown or rest and digest. You've probably heard the rest and digest, but it's much deeper than that because it's the shutdown part of it as well, the freeze aspect. And then we also have the front part of this vagus nerve called the ventral vagus. Okay, now the ventral vagus actually runs, and it's all to do with our facial expressions, our heart, our lungs, and it's actually to do with our social connection. So we really have a toned, hopefully, front part of our vagus nerve, unless in childhood maybe we've had parents and caregivers that don't give us those facial expressions to keep us safe. So that front part isn't even toned either, but the back part, that dorsal part, is our shutdown. So let me explain to you in a really simple way of understanding these fight, flight and freeze and this social connection aspect, this social engagement part of this whole process of us as human beings. Of course, we want to be in that nice, calm, regulated aspect. Now, our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system, we want them to work in conjunction with each other. And we want to then, if it needs to go into fight or flight, great, we might need it in that moment. We might be getting mugged, or something might be happening. We might even need to go into freeze, but we want these to work together for us to go back to a baseline when we need to. So as an analogy for this, if you think about a house, so that house has got all its utilities, the lights, just the bare minimum in that house to keep it going. That's your freeze response, okay? So your freeze response is literally about you in your body and your brain, literally just keeping it ticking over until it needs to do something else. So think of a time where maybe you've gone into freeze trauma response, and that could be you want to just curl up in bed. You just want to zone out and watch rubbish TV. You literally don't want to see or speak to anybody. You're literally going into yourself. You're going into that freeze response. That is literally in your house. The utilities are up and running, and they're just literally there to keep that house running. That's it, okay? Then we also have the fight or flight, okay? That trauma response, that sympathetic nervous system response, that is like the security system. So you imagine if someone's trying to break into your house, woo, woo, you've got this security system, the fight or flight, to obviously then react appropriately in that moment. So again, if someone was chasing after you down the street, trying to mug you, then you're either going to fight them, but personally, nowadays, I don't think I'd do that because you're not going to know if they've got a knife or anything. I'm going to really try and run away. So I'm going to go into flight. That's my body's security system going, Caroline, you need to fight. You need to run away there. It takes over. I move from rational calm and whatever I'm doing, maybe walking down the street, suddenly going into my limbic system. My amygdala in there is on alert. Boom, there I'm going to go into fight, flight or freeze, dependent on what my brain makes of the external environment to make that decision. And that also comes from all of my other past experiences as well. So in that moment, if you imagine the house, we've got the fight or flight, which is your security system, trying to keep that house safe, okay, fight or flight. Then we've got the freeze, just barely keeping everything ticking over nicely, just for it to be like that. And then we've also got this front part of that vagus nerve, remember, that ventral part. That's all part of social engagement. So in that house, in ourselves, we want to have connection. We want to have joy and happiness and love and connect with others, live our life. And that is very much part of our ventral vagus nerve as well. And again, if we don't have a toned ventral vagus nerve or dorsal, we're going to be going and we're going to think everybody the way they look at us because we don't understand what expressions are because no one taught us that. We're just going to feel really, really unsafe all of the time. So a lot of people will be going from their sympathetic nervous system with that security system into the freeze, and they're going from one to the other, from one to the other. I certainly know when I came out of my marriage, gosh, around 10 years ago now, I was very much jumping pretty much from freeze to start off with, and then I was going into fight. As I started to heal, I really went into that fight. So really for my whole of my 30s, I was really in the freeze and fawn trauma response. And then when I left my ex-husband, I was in the freeze response pretty much. Then I started to go into the fight response, and I was literally going in and out. But all of that was my brain and body thinking it was doing the best for me. And so many of you, if you feel like you're stuck and you're angry all of the time, or you feel like you just want to run away, or you feel like you're just dissociating and existing and going into yourself, and you're feeling bad because you think you should be getting better because society thinks, oh God, just get on with it, you know, just start to embrace your brain and body and know that how you are feeling is for a reason. And that reason is because your brain thinks it's doing the right thing for you in that moment to keep you safe. So again, going back to the analogy I talk about, they think your brain thinks the lion is about to eat you, so I need to fight or flight. There's a lion about to come into the house, security system, or the lion's in the house, just freeze, be quiet, just keep everything ticking over. Okay, so I hope that kind of analogy helps you, because I just really, really want you to understand that how you feel right now is your way of coping and staying safe, and I want you to stop beating yourself up. However, I don't want you to keep living your life like this. I don't want you to keep living your life jumping from fight, flight, freeze, because that is not healthy. Because at the moment when you feel that dysregulation, you might just feel tension, maybe in your neck or your jaw or your shoulders or your back. But that on a prolonged basis will lead to disease. Things like autoimmune disorders, digestive issues, thyroid problems, liver issues, you know, inflammatory conditions, pain, migraines. So it can start off like that, but it will start to progress. So we want to really clear that through your body so that ultimately you can live your life and not exist.